Good afternoon, Mr. Daly.
Afternoon, Chair. Afternoon, Council. Thank you very much. My name is Chris Daly. I live at 1528 Delaware Avenue in Shore Acres, and I volunteer as the chair for the City of St. Petersburg National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System Program for Public Information, or quite simply, Noah Taylor's PPI group. And I see Councilmember Gabbard shaking her head. She's a valuable member in that group, as well as Amber Bolding. Both of them participate awesomely. The goal of that group is to reduce the city's exposure to expensive flood insurance claims. Tropical Storm Eta was an expensive storm for the residents of Shore Acres and also the city, as we see here. But it didn't have to be this way. Approximately 50% of the homes that flooded in Shore Acres this past week flooded solely because of negligent drivers pushing wakes into people's homes. These residents had homes that were above the storm surge that was outlined earlier in our presentation, and they could withstand that storm surge, but they could not withstand a 3 to 4 foot wall of water pushed by a monster truck in the middle of the night. In 2015, I presented the Shore Acres disaster operating plan to the city's PSNI meeting, attended by all council members who were there at the time. And in the development of that plan, the Shore Acres Civic Association unanimously decided that access to Shore Acres should be restricted during high water events. And that was specifically to deter people from driving these monster trucks through Shore Acres and pushing this water. And so we saw that damage happen in Tropical Storm Debbie in 2012, and that's what spurred the Civic Association to develop this disaster operating plan. So we saw it in 2012. We also saw it last week in Tropical Storm Eta, and it really saddens me to see everybody's belongings, hundreds of people in Shore Acres, all their belongings, sitting on the street. And I go up and ask them, what time did you flood? If you flooded after 12 o'clock at midnight, that was because of a vehicle driving up and down the streets. If you flooded before 12 o'clock midnight, that was because of the storm surge. So our neighborhood is recovering, but we need to be more proactive, and I'm here to be part of that solution, that after-action solution. And if I told Noah Taylor that we could reduce our flood losses by 50% during a tropical storm event, he would jump at it. And implementing this disaster operating plan would certainly do that. I've lived on Shore Acres my entire life, and I want to help the city make things better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for coming in and lending your expertise to us and pointing out a very troubling statistic when it comes to flooding. Councilmember Gabbard.
Thank you, Chair. So it has been a long week since the tropical storm went through. A very long week for staff, a very long week for, I know, at least myself and Councilmember Montanari, but mostly a long week for residents whose homes were flooded. I was out this morning with sanitation and codes team walking and providing information and talking to residents, and people's hearts are broken. Their homes are unlivable. Their things are all over the street because they can't be inside. It is heartbreaking. And so, we have a lot of lessons to learn, I think. And for me, representing a coastal district, this is a wake-up call. This is definitely, there are things I think that we can do better, and relatively simple things. Chris talked about one of them, a complaint that I had in my district as well in Riviera Bay, which was the wake, that cars were pushing more water up into people's homes. And so, that is just one of a few things. There has been an enormous effort by staff behind the scenes to try to get information into people's hands. There was a meeting for Shore Acres on Monday night. There was a meeting for Riviera Bay on Tuesday night. Staff out walking. I just quickly, if I could, just want to recognize those staff. Amber obviously has been very instrumental. Liz Abernathy, Rob Gertis, Claude Tankersley, Carlos Fry, Noah Taylor, Angela Phillips, Rob Turner, James Corbett, Andrea Brown, who I walked with this morning. These are staff members who really have gone above and beyond this week to show the city's care for our residents. And so I just wanted to publicly call them out and thank them for that work. My legislative aide, Lenny Randolph, of course. And then for my district, the president of Riviera Bay, Vicki Schumann, her house flooded. But Friday morning, she was reaching out to her council member wanting to know what we could do to help people. And so I really wanted to give her a shout out as a great representative for her neighborhood and a real advocate for them. I wanted to ask just a couple of questions. Amber, I love to hear that the after action report and the corrective action plan is going to be coming through. And I definitely, Chair, would like us to hear that whenever those are done so that we can have those conversations. There was an issue that came to light very, very quickly, and I'm not sure if it's an administrative policy. I'm not quite sure where it fits so that we could fix it. But whenever people started pulling everything out and calling the city to see if we would come by and do a large debris pickup for people, they were being told that our policy was, and staff rightfully so, following the policy, that they would be charged for that pickup. Well, that became very burdensome to people, and people were obviously very upset about that. The mayor thankfully did reverse course, but was not able to do so until Monday morning. So many people had already paid large fees to companies to come and get things. What can we do to change within our policies so that we, as soon as we know that this is a named storm that happened, we can start telling staff that they can pick up for people free of charge?
Well, I mean, it's the type of thing I'd like to discuss among our team to understand. It may be not having a specific provision of what will happen, but leaving it to discretion to assess the situation and respond accordingly.
Okay.
That allows for the most latitude to be responsive to the specific situation. But it's something that I definitely, we've been talking about ourselves. We haven't come to conclusion. It's something we're reviewing.
Okay.
And, we know that it requires some action and consideration.
Okay. Is that administrative policy as to the charges, or is that an ordinance? I mean, Jackie?
It could be either.
Okay.
So I'd say if the code doesn't specifically address it, it would be up to administration to kind of fill in those gaps. Alternatively, there could be a more specific code provision to address it as well. So I think it could happen either way.
Well, I would like for us to talk about that, and I'll work with you on that, Deputy Mayor and Jackie. And if it's something that has to come back to council to pass and change the code, then I would like to see that through. Because I think it's just important. I mean, really, for me, it's kind of all about having a plan in place so that when these things happen, regardless of how quickly they come up on us, because that's really what happened. It was a very changing storm. It came up on us. But we, in my opinion, need a better plan for how we respond to residents immediately in the aftermath, because their world has fallen apart. And so waiting until Monday to get answers on things like this really, for me, did not cut it. So, I'd love to work with you on that, and we'll see what we can do. And then my last request is very specific to Riviera Bay. Claude and I have had a lot of discussions over the last couple of days, and there is a lot of concern about our pump technology. And, our data says that it was working appropriately. Residents are concerned that the data is not accurate. I really want us to be able to clear that up. I want us to be able to clear it up quickly. And so I'm just asking from residents that I spoke with just this morning, a commitment from administration that we will see that through. We will do the investigation that it takes. If there is technology that's not working or whatever it ends up being, that we'll be transparent about it and that we'll do what it takes to fix it so that if it was an issue that could have been prevented, that it doesn't happen again.
Of course. as I understand it, the system was working, the surge could not have been averted by the pump,
Right.
but I will have Claude formalize that and report.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like for people, it's just they need to feel confidence in the infrastructure that we have. And I think it's easy to look for someone to blame. And I mean, obviously, if there is any discrepancy in the data or anything that we could have done, I just want us to learn those lessons, do it better next time. If the data is accurate and Mother Nature just took her course, that's fine too. But I really want residents to feel that confidence that we have done everything we can to make sure that that technology is working well.
We're on the exact same page.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you,
Can
Chair.
I ask Deputy Mayor I couldn't hear your answer about what happened with the pumps. Could you just say it louder?
I can't give a full account of what happened, but as we show, the pumps worked as they were expected to, as they're supposed to.
Okay.
That the surge that we saw was not one that could have been averted by the pumps, but I'll have Claude do a full formal write-up of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabbard. Councilmember Blackman.
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Gabbard made a lot of excellent points. I just wanted to piggyback on one thing she said, which was the brush pickup. I didn't have any complaints about that, but a couple people did reach out to me that were turned away at the brush site because, you know, they didn't have a vehicle and they had a representative taking brush to the brush sites and they didn't have the proper authorization forms. That's something I'd also like to consider is relaxation of those rules in the immediate aftermath of a storm, and that if you don't have the designated, assignee or a water bill. I had two different people contact me, heartbroken that somebody they employed couldn't take the brush to the local brush site because they didn't have the proper authorization, and it was just a mess, and I tried to resolve it, but anyway, that's just something I'd like to add into what Councilmember Gabbard said.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Blackman. I wanted to publicly thank President of Shore Acres, Gary Grudinskas, for his leadership, the board of Shore Acres, people like Chris, who came out to make a very good point about cars driving through Shore Acres, which my family moved to Shore Acres when we first moved here back in 1976. So I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I worship my church is in Shore Acres. I'm there all the time, and this is just a recurring problem. At that meeting on Monday night, and it was a long meeting, but it was a thorough meeting. Somebody put up in the chat feature, and that's how people were asking questions, of a legislative fix to try to slow traffic down on flooded roads that was brought up. Apparently, it was passed in the city of New Orleans. And Jackie, I just wanted to inform you that I'm going to be I'll speak with you about trying to draft an ordinance for the city of St. Petersburg, which basically would slow people down to 5 miles an hour on a flooded street. And Shore Acres has done a wonderful job with their plan. I've got it here in front of me, but it takes some effort on the city's part to implement the plan. And part of the plan was implemented this time, but part of it wasn't. And it's just heartbreaking to hear about people's homes and trying to deal with the aftermath. And my family had to deal with the aftermath after Hurricane Elena in 1985. So I want to make sure that we're proactive in addressing some of these issues. I wanted to shift gears and ask a couple other questions about the city that I haven't heard about. Did we have any flooding around Lake Magori? Because that's a recurring area.
Like on the east side of it.
Amber?
To my knowledge, we didn't. I think they were, I don't know that any water went into homes. I think some streets flooded. But I'll have to circle back around with building department to find out for sure on that.
Okay. I'd like to know about that. And then I also, like most people, was watching a lot of weather on Bay News 9, and they kept showing the pier. How did the pier do? Did we have damage out at the pier? And if we did have damage, how extensive was it?
So there was impact at the pier. The water levels rose and breached the seawalls in a way that caused some erosion of the landscaping, topsoil, and ground cover. There are a few other details. We have a detailed list. I don't know it by heart to call them off in an itemized way. But the peer management team and our internal management team got to work right away in response and are addressing all of the things that happened. There was some damage to the fish cleaning station, for example. Small, nominal things, but things that will require some attention, and we've been told it's going to take a couple of weeks. It looks like Chris is coming on. You may have that list right in front of you, Chris.
Hey, Chris, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. The deputy mayor captured it perfectly, so I won't repeat all of that. But the good news, I think, for the pier was you're absolutely correct. It was Bay News 9 and other outlets were really camped out in the southeast corner of the Pelican lot by Doc Ford's. And there were some rather dramatic, wind and surge-driven rains coming up over the seawall. And that said, even with all that, all of the businesses were back open on Thursday afternoon. Our infrastructure did exactly as it was designed to do. So we're all very thankful for that. The things that did get challenged most notably were their erosion issues, really wrapping around the building, the admin and Doc Ford's building, leading all the way around the sidewalk up to the Doc Ford, the Benoit. So those are issues that we're dealing with right now. It has not affected either the businesses or the guests at all. But we had very minor, a tiny bit of water that came into that very exposed building that Tampa Bay Watch occupies over the pier, came in through conduit, actually, not through any of the glass or doors. So, yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised how well everything did, all things taken care of. And I really need to compliment all the staff, both city and Colliers, that prepared in advance of the storm to make sure that we were ready for it in every way we could be.
Okay, thank you for that update. My last question, or it's more a comment, not a question, but I just would ask administration, and I know when these things happen, I mean, everybody's workload just goes through the roof, but we always need to work on communication and internal communication with city staff and then external communication to the public. I was monitoring the city's Twitter feed and the Facebook page, but it would have been nice maybe to get like a update from like an email update from time to time on what is going on within the city, because sometimes I don't know, I was out trying to help my friends and family during the time, and I just couldn't stay in contact with everything. So if we can work on that, that would be one of my other suggestions. Let's go next to Vice Chair Driscoll.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the pier, I noticed when I checked the TV on Wednesday afternoon, it had to have been 2 o'clock or a little later. Someone was doing a stand-up out there, and they were near Doc Ford's, and I saw a few Adirondack chairs still out, all of the umbrellas in the outdoor area on the ground by Doc Ford's were still out. And I was really surprised that at that point, those items had not been secured and removed from the area, because by then it was getting pretty bad. And so I was wondering who's actually responsible for that. Is it Colliers that is responsible for securing those types of items, or is it the city?
It is Colliers, Councilmember Driscoll. The Adirondacks, for what it's worth, are actually cabled. So you can move them around, but they're generally held in place. The umbrellas, though, were laid down and pushed into one area near the retention area.
Yeah. Well, the Adirondacks being cabled, I mean, that's nice that they won't fly, but it doesn't mean that things won't fly into them. And the look of it with that and the umbrellas still being out after 2 o'clock that day, that told me that we were behind on getting everything ready. So I had been wondering that, and wondering like what Chris and Deputy Mayor, what your assessment was of the job that Colliers did on preparing, especially on such short notice, because it was quite the fire drill.
It was short notice. I would say we were very happy with Collier's performance. They were very responsive. They were dealing with the same variables as everyone. Extremely short notice. They did a good job coordinating not only with us, but with the tenants, and working with them to make sure that the premises were cleared and securing everything. They clearly had a system that may have been hard for us to perceive as it was unfolding from a distance, but they had a plan, they followed it. I think that the damage was mitigated accordingly, and we will always see opportunities to do things better. I think they learned a lot because it was the first time they've experienced an adverse weather event. But overall, I would definitely say that they met our expectations as it relates to managing the asset during that time.
That's great, thank you. And just a comment on Councilmember Gabbard's earlier remarks on the brush and debris pickup. I would be very supportive of some type of an ordinance or change in policy that would trigger a waiving of the fees that perhaps goes along with the declaration of a state of emergency, something like that, that is not even subjective. It's just, when this happens, here's what we do. And then, I would want like sort of a mechanism for an end date for that, so that 2 months later, we're not still picking things up for free when people finally get around to it, because we always have the stragglers. But I look forward to hearing more about that, and I think we could put something in place that can help people out and not kick them when they're down. So thank you for that, Councilmember Gabbard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Driscoll. Councilmember Gabbard.
So what Vice Chair Driscoll just said reminded me that did come up in the Riviera Bay meeting was, well, how long do I have? How long will you continue? What is super important to remember after a storm where water gets in your home is that it's not about how long we're willing to accept your stuff. You need to get that stuff out of there immediately, because water leads to mold, leads to health problems. So I think having some sort of timeline in place probably is advantageous, because it helps our residents kind of be a little bit more speedy in protecting themselves and starting that process. So thank you for reminding me of that, and I'll make sure whenever we meet that we add that in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabbard. Amber, again, thank you for the report, both on COVID-19 and tropical storm. It's very important to do an after-action review of after you have a storm like this, so that the next time it happens, and there will be a next time, and there will be stronger storms, because of where we live, we need to be prepared and we need to do it better. So we did, I'm always very proud of the city and the work that we do, but there's always room for improvement. And we had, thank you to Mr. Daly for pointing out some of the issues when it came to flooding that could have been prevented, but also Councilmember Gabbard, Councilmember Blackman, and Vice Chair Driscoll for their positive fixes to a bigger problem that we need to address.